Alright, I'm back for another tournament. We've got the American Classic tournament. I set up a playlist in golf in YouTube with all of the holes, and you'll notice that some of the holes I've replaced out with some tournament stuff that we've played, just because it was more set up for how to play it in the tournament. And hole number 8, I have 2 different ways to play it, depending on which way you're coming in. And a lot of that's going to depend on your club. So let's go. All of these holes that are going to be in the American Classic are Juniper Point, and they're going to play them in order. So hole number 1 of Juniper Point is hole number 1 of the American Classic, and it's going to go all the way through like that. So if you're watching the videos, hey, I appreciate it. And let's talk about hole number 1. So here's the deal. I'm going to start off here, and it'll depend on your extra mile. So if you got an extra mile 8, I think you can use a Marlin. If you've got a extra mile 7, you're probably, or a 6, you're probably going to have to up that to like a Navigator. Staying in the same 1 power, you've jumped up in power, but you've still kept the same side spin, because when you start to get into a ball that has more side spin than 1, it's going to change the setup for this shot. So here's how I set this shot up. I do this every single time I come to this hole, and I care less whether or not I end up in the ravine, but I hardly ever end up in the ravine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here along this transitional line. So you've got the rough, and you've got the first cut of the rough, and you've got the fairway. So right along this transitional line, I'm going to put my blue ring, about half my blue ring. If you've got an extra mile level 8, I'm going to put about half that blue ring right on that transitional line, and then I'm going to adjust out the wind. Now if the wind is going in this direction, it's going towards the hole from where the tee box is, I'm going to leave the wind in. If the wind is going in any other direction, if it's going this direction or any other direction, I'm going to take the wind out, because I don't want the wind to be a factor. So if the wind was coming in this direction, I'm going to move it to the left and take the wind out. Then the wind's going to push it back to the point where the blue ring would be on that transition, and then the shot's going to happen. So I want that's where this is going to be, and it's going to be a max overpower hook shot. And what that'll do with the extra mile 8 and a Marlin is it'll put you on the green. And it'll, more than likely, if you use max topspin, it'll put you back here on the back side of the green. And you got a pretty good area back here, and it's I haven't ever rolled over since I first started this game. When you first start, you've rolled over several times and ended up down here in the drink, but you won't get that far. If you got an extra mile level 7 or 6, you might want to practice with a Navigator, just so you can keep the 1 side spin, and see if that'll help you out. But I'm going to continue to practice this shot from over here, because this is getting you on, and one you make a putt and you go home. If you can get over in one, it's putt eagle, and starting your round off on this type of hole with an eagle is huge. So that's hole number 1, and I'm going to make a note here. I'm going to start a little running tab. If I can find my pen. I'm sitting out in the dark on my back porch. This is a -2 hole. We really want to try and get -2 on that hole. Alright, par 3. This is a very, this particular par 3 has been redesigned, and when they redesigned it, it plays a little bit different. It used to be you could get hole-in-ones on this pretty regularly, but now it seems really stingy, and so it's just a trickle in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Saturn, and I want to, let me get a little closer. I'm going to use my Saturn, and I'm going to wedge my blue rings up in this spot right here. And then from that spot coming in, if with a Marlin ball, you've got about 2.5 bars, 2 3/4 bars, somewhere in that neighborhood, 2 1/4, somewhere there, of side spin. I'm going to put on some left-hand side spin and about the same amount of backspin, and just try and bring it to the hole. Now there's a really steep hill here, so if you hit it up here, you're going to roll down, and it's going to kind of funnel towards the hole. As long as you have just a little teeny bit of speed, it'll roll all the way down that hill. So you can either engage the hill and allow gravity to play a factor. That's a variable. So if you come in just a little slow, it's going to drop a little bit faster. If If you come in a little hot, it's going to drop a little slower. It's going to blow through that hillside until gravity starts to take effect on it. It's going to drop it down. And what I want to do is I want to try and come out a little bit lower on the hill and a little bit flatter and try and come right at it. All right, that was hole number 3, or excuse me, hole number 2. Hole number 3. All right, hole number 3. So on this hole right here, in tournament, in one-on-one play, so if you have lower developed clubs, not a problem. Okay, not a problem whatsoever. You're gonna land from you're gonna play the white spot. You're gonna play the white spot here. When you come out, you're just trying to bounce over to the other side. You're gonna have to, even though it seems like you're trying to get around this bend and that you need to put right hand curl on it, you actually want to put, or side spin, you actually want to put left hand side spin, because this hillside here on this corner, everything feeds down towards that shadow. And so there's a hill here, and so the terrain is really, it kind of drops off and it goes down the hill. And so if you hit like right here, it's going to feed and you're going to end up in the rough or the sand. So you actually want to try and hit a little bit high, and if you have a little bit of left hand side spin, it'll pull you up, and then at the end of the run it'll drop down the hill and you'll end up in this shadow. And from that shadow, in one-on-one play, okay, this is a long iron shot from the shadow. In a one-on-one play, this is a tough shot to do with a Guardian, because if you can't make it all the way over so that you're starting on the green side with your Guardian, if you short shoot it too much, you'll have to bounce it over, and you only have 2 topspin with your Guardian. And here's the deal with this green. This is an old hole, so if you end up short up here at the top on the green, you're not going to make that putt. It's a max overpower putt, and you can't make it. You would have been better off being in the sand. Okay, so when you get down here, if you're using a Guardian, you're going to end up and you can't get all the way over, and you have to make the shot. You only have 2 topspin, so you're really going to have to get close down here, and it carries just a little funny down in that hole. So just be aware that if you come here, it's best to, you can hit that first shot, that layup shot with a quarterback. Have to bring just a little bit bigger ball. You can use your extra mile. But coming into the green, this is a better hole for a sniper or a hammerhead or something that's got a little bit of topspin on it, a big dog. So for those of you that have lower developed clubs, this is definitely a big dog hole if you're going to play the layup shot. Okay, the other shot to take here is the black shot. In the black shot, you're trying to end up, there's a line, and depending on, and of course if you take this, you're going to bring a kingmaker. And there's a line up here, and if you can get somewhere in this range right here, you're in your short iron range, and you have a serious shot at Albie. So what we want to do is we're going to come down into this area down here where the shadow is. Now it's tricky down here. So here's the rough. So the rough comes around underneath of those trees, and it kind of goes like that. And so the trees are here hanging out over into the fairway, and you want to be like, normally when I set up shots, I'm always 2 rings away from a transitional surface. So like here's the first cut of the rough, here's the second cut of the rough. So sorry about that, I touched the screen over there. So these transitional surfaces, you'd want to be 2 rings off. It's hard to be 2 rings off down here and still clear this little peninsula right here with your curl. So it's very tricky down into in this corner. You got to get as close down here as you can, like right about the tip, about halfway in the shadow. You need to be as close as you can in order to be able to have enough curl to be able to clear this. So it's real tricky, but if you can get down there, or if you can get super lucky, and this happens a lot when you're trying to take this shot, you'll hit it and you'll bounce over this rough. Even if you clip it, you're still in your short iron range. You'll still dribble out here far enough that you'll still be in your short iron range even if you clip it. So don't be too upset if you clip it, but there's a lot of times you can bounce over that. But ideally you want to be outside of it out here so you can just roll up to the front. That gives you your best shot. Alright, that was hole number 3. Let's go to hole number 4. Hole number 4. So I don't like this white line. There is a definite wind thing out here, and the reason is because here you're pretty, it's going up the hill, but here on this pad, you're not only higher than this point, but you're on a side hill. So you're trying to hit from a higher point on a side hill, and if you hit it here, you're going to have one result. If you hit it here, you're going to have another. If you hit it here, you're going to have another, and they're going to be not good. So and you've got a tricky wind adjustment, and you're on trying to hit on the side of a hill and try and bring it back over. So yes, you can get close from this spot. But and I'm not a big fan on this type of hole either of hitting down in here, because look, if you hit, let's draw a line here, anywhere in this fairway area right here, look at all the moguls, look at all the shadows and all the moguls that are in here. So if you hit down into one of these hollows and you hit on the face, you're going to have one result, and if you hit on the flat, you're going to have a different, or if you hit on the hillside, you're going to have a different. So on this type of hole right here, I definitely want to bring a Guardian, and I'm going to work my ball, because with a Marlin on this hole, your red lines are somewhere in here. So in this area, you're at about mid-club. It's actually a little bit lower than that. That's with a Marlin. So I may bring a Katana, a 2-power ball, to see if I can move this red line forward and get this red line so that it's right here. And the reason is that I'm going to set my ball up. I want to start off with a Guardian. I want to start on the green or the fringe and stay on the green and try and backspin it into the hole. I want to get right up here in the front. I want to take all of these traps completely out of play and just focus on the green. Okay, all I want's this area right here. I don't want to mess around with any of that. And you've got a great shot here with the backspin. But I think what I'll do during the week, during the practice round, excuse me, and as the week goes on, is find out what ball will put my red line at the spot where I'm pulling back, or I'm making whatever wind adjustment I am from the red line. So I'm at minimum club. And with minimum club with my Guardian, it hits about 1.7 per ring. So it'll give me a good starting point. All right, hole number 5. All right, there's several ways to go at this. What I'm going to do on this hole to give myself, okay, this shot over here is pretty easy with a quarterback. When you're playing rookie, you can shoot this with a quarterback. You got to bring a bigger ball. You've got a great look coming into the hole, because when you get up to the green area, you've got all of this green to work with. But there's a hillside right here. Let's draw a line. There's a hillside right here. And so you're hitting up this, and you're hitting up the face of the hillside, and then there's a flat area on this side of the green. And so you've got to run it up that hill, and then the pin is actually on the flat side. And you're going to take this shot with a wood. So if you hit over here and you make it, this shot from over here is with a wood. This shot from up here is with a long iron or a wood. So over here you're going to be at max wood, and over here you're going to be at minimum wood, depending on what ball you bring and depending on what kind of distance you can get. So let me look at my notes here, because I wrote some distance stuff down. What hole are we on? We're on hole number 5. I didn't write it down for this hole. I think we need to be, where this black line is. If you look at the transition, like look at the fairway over here, and you see the curvature in it that's in there right there, right where it comes flat and then it starts to make the curve. That's right about even with where that black line is. That's about the minimum spot that you want to be. And what you can do from there is you can take a big topper. Excuse me. You can take a big topper and you can bounce over from the area down here. You're going to have to let the wind come help you just a little. I would definitely use a Titan. Look at hole number 5. Big topper, Titan. And then the shot coming in is going to be with your long iron. Now in the past I've taken this with a backbone, but I have lost confidence in my backbone. And I've had traditionally more success with my Saturn, even though it's less accurate. And so I'm going to be playing with a Saturn. I think I have a better shot coming in with a Saturn. I feel more comfortable with it, and sometimes it's all about your comfort with a club. So I'm going to take the second shot from out here, and I'm trying to get a little bit in front of that black line, and I'm taking it in. And the lower you can get, the better. So if you're up here high, even if you're at the same distance and you're on this line and you're high, your shot's not as good as when it's down low. because when you're coming into the green, you have to contend with this sand. So there's the sand trap goes like this. Here's the sand trap. So you got that little fringe area that's here, so this, or rough area. So the rough and the sand are right there. And so if you're back over here on the blue line, you're coming in at it. The only way this is going to work is if you can get in front of the sand and you can try and backspin it with your long iron. And a Saturn doesn't have quite, it's hard to get that high up there unless you're going to use a bigger power ball to try and bounce over on the drive. So the drive shot is basically showing you ending up down here in one by bouncing over, like bouncing into that area, or trying. I just want to be out here as low as I can be to try and get a great shot in. Hole number 6. All right, I love this hole. This hole right here is an absolute eagle hole on the black line. Now there used to be more trees here in the middle and they thinned them out, so you can take this yellow line and try and blast through the trees, but the deal is that it's not a for sure shot. If you get up there, it looks awesome. But if you don't get up there, you're in big trouble. And I've never been a fan of the white line, so you'll never see anything of me demoing it, because the black line gives you a minimum short iron shot, and you can take this shot with a QB and a Kingmaker, or an extra mile and a Marlin. So you can pick. I'm going to probably in the tournament use a very accurate club to get me through this gap. I'll probably use a Kingmaker, and the Kingmaker is going to help me because on the second shot it's going to knock the wind down. And you want every advantage you can get on the second shot because it's a serious eagle shot. Even if you bring an extra mile and a Marlin, it's still a serious eagle shot. Hole number 7. All right, this par 3 right here. Okay, so we have a hill face here. Let me draw it in profile. So draw it over here in profile. So here's the sand. The sand's kind of in a flat area, and then it starts to pick up, and then it goes up towards the green. Okay, and so like here's the pin, and this is radical. It's probably it's probably somewhere in between those angles. It's pretty steep. So where that black dot's hitting is somewhere like right in this area right here. And I don't want to engage that hill that high up, because when you come in at it and you hit the hill, it wants to take a bounce up, and that's in a forward moving direction. But you're losing a lot of your energy going up. And it's harder to make adjustments when you have these huge bounces. I want the ball to be a little more predictable on its bounce. So what I'm going to do is start lower down on the hill. So I'm not engaging so much of the steepness of the hill. I'm right there at that transition between how flat it is down here by the sand and how steep it is in the middle. So I'm going to bring it down so that my sniper's wedged in. Literally the white rings are wedged into that spot, and that's my starting point. And I will take, on this I used very little adjustment. When you see this hole, it's like one and just a sliver. I play this hole a lot. I like this hole. I used to not like it, but I've learned to like it. And about one and a sliver of topspin, just a little teeny bit of left-hand side spin. And I was rubbing up against the nubs just because I was hitting it and ending up just right along the right-hand edge. So that's how I'm going to play this hole. Lower down on the hill, white ring, sniper. Even if you're using a Guardian or whatever you're using, you can use a Guardian on this. But be lower down on the hill. It'll have a flatter bounce that's more like normal. Hole number 8. All right, there's 2 ways to play this, and I posted both ways. I posted the white way, and if you do the white way, the goal is to get as far down in here as you can possibly get. Now you don't want to, it doesn't matter really if you end up in the rough down here, because you can take the shot easily from the rough. So if you're going to take the white line, get as far down here as you can get. And the reason is draw a line from the green along the sand trap. And if you can get anywhere in this fairway area right here, then you've got a shot at the green where you can run it in right to the hole. The farther back you are in this direction, the more you put the sand into play. And the more you put the sand into play, the more you have to do the little rough bump like what they're showing on the white line. Whereas if you can get farther out there, you can have a chip-in shot with a hornet or a thorn. you can have a really good shot. Instead of using your thorn in this position, you can actually start off on the green and really be going at the hole. So go long. If you end up in the rough, you can easily make, you've got an easy on. Your eagle shot may be diminished, but you still have an easy on. Now the black line is definitely the way to go in tournaments if the wind is blowing anywhere in this direction. You start getting winds that are blowing, like this, it's harder. As long as you have something that's blowing on this line that's, going anywhere towards the line, even if it was right on the line, you could probably still do this shot right here. But if you start getting headwind, this shot becomes much tougher, because then it's a much tougher shot. And what we're trying to do is to hopscotch this ball. In the starting area here, what I'm normally looking for is I'm trying to pinch my ball. The last tournament, I think the wind was running in actually I think it was running more in this kind of a direction right here. And what I was doing was I was pinching my ball. I've got my red line here, and I was pinching it right up against that transition between the rough and the fairway. And then I was allowing the wind to push me back into the fairway. And I found that if I had about a 2-3 wind, that would be fine. That was enough. But if I had a 4 wind, I actually had to take a little bit of wind out of it because it put me too far down on the other side. And from that spot, and just a very little teeny bit of overpower and in about 3 right-hand side spin, the ball's going in this direction. And so I'm putting that little bit of side spin to bring it back over into this area to try to get it to hopscotch over and be on the green in one. So to say that this is a low percentage shot would be an understatement. But it's a very possible shot. You can get into a rhythm on it. And so that's the shot we're going to be practicing all week. Now, this takes a bigger club and a bigger ball. So you may not be able to get this shot done with a lower level extra mile unless you do a lot of overpower or you do something strange on it. So if you find that over here, I would go for this shot no matter what. Your risk here is that you'd end up in this drink. If you end up so screwed up that you end up over here, then wow. So if you're finding yourself at all in the drink and you're having that problem, go the white line and hit to the rough if that's what it takes. But if you're not having that problem, you're probably better off trying to go for it and hoping that, the blind squirrel finds a nut. Because even if you set this all up right, it's still, you're hopscotching it. You're hopscotching from this pad to this pad to this pad to dribble onto the green. And so it's a pretty low percentage shot to begin with, but it's very possible, and you will hit it if you practice it. All right, that's hole number 8. Hole number 9. Okay, the goal here is to try and get out on this pad, and you don't need to use max topspin. So in rookie, we can come out here, we can actually use a katana, and a katana will just barely get us over. You could up that up to a kingmaker, but you probably only need to use about 2 to 3 topspin, somewhere like max, because if you add any more than that, you'll roll over. And then from that point, you're trying to come in, and you can come at this from a lot of different ways. You can come at it. I'm going to come at it with a backspin club and try and get where I can get closer. Now I may have to come at it like this and put curl on it in order to bring it in, but I'm going to start the week off using a backspin club and see how that goes. But I'm definitely going to be playing the white line and trying to land on the pad out here. I don't know, and I'll practice it during the week and see if there's a max overpower shot that we can do on this hole. I'll try and find these holes and see if there is a max overpower shot that we could do, because where we're at out here in this area, we could do a max overpower where we set up here and we try and get over on the other side. But I don't know where our landing zone is if we do a max overpower, but I'll try it out. But I have a video up of how to land on this pad, and even if you're a little short on the pad, obviously it's better to be in the front, But if you end up a little short, you still got a shot. If you're up in the front, you can actually bring your Guardian all the way over and start on the other side of the sand and backspin that sucker right towards the hole. All right, that was hole number 9. That was just kind of a basic walkthrough of the Juniper Point holes. These are going to be in the American Classic tournament that will be happening next week. And all of the holes in the American Classic are going to be exactly the same as the Juniper Point. So once again, if you're watching the YouTube videos, I have some of them may say something other than Juniper Point, and that's because they're from a tournament. So I was tournament ready when I was playing those holes, and I posted them instead just so you can see. So you can check out a lot of these holes in the Gridiron tournament. I have a bunch of different postings in the Gridiron tournament, and there's also a bunch of these that are in the Community Cup. And then there's some in Tour 6. There's some that were posted here in Tour 6 under the Juniper Point holes. All right, thanks for watching.